This is Adrian Hart with your Southeast Colorado news on seconews.org. History Colorado proposed that the Swink Community Center could be added to the National Registry of Historic Places at the Swink Council meeting Wednesday night.
Moving on, let's move to new business now. First item will be History Colorado.
Hi, I'm Layla Ansel-Killian. I'm a Bridge for All Research Fellow with History Colorado. And History Colorado has started this initiative to find 150 sites in Colorado throughout the entire state, the state's history. And so been doing a lot of travel, coming to places like Swink and looking for historic properties that really represent a community's history and also more broadly Colorado's history as well. And so we would like to nominate Swink Community Center right down the street for its association with the for its use as a community space in the town of Swink for a little over 100 years. I guess it'd be like 104 years, I suppose. It was built in 1921, and it was first constructed as a library for the whole community. And during that period, it may have been a library and a school at the same time, but it definitely was a school between the 1930s and 1955 before school consolidation occurred, with the bigger school now down on that half of town. And it also may have served as the city hall as well at one point before becoming the community center that it is now. And we also found it's associated also with just the diversity of Swink community as well. There are many historic photographs of Japanese, or there's one historic photograph showing a class from 1937 of Japanese American students, so the Japanese American community in Swink, which is a really big portion of the history. But overall, it's social and communal history that we really would like to capture and record. And so the state and national register programs for History Colorado is an honorary information gathering program, so really just kind of preserving that memory and trying to record that history as well. And so there are no restrictions to the property or ownership is something we like to make sure that we tell as well when proposing this. And a property cannot be nominated to the state or national register without written consent from the property owner. So that's why we're coming to you all today to discuss this. And property owners throughout this entire nomination process would be kept informed and also would be invited to review and comment on the nomination draft. So basically that the entire nomination is kind of that history, talks about the architecture as well. So kind of like a big research paper on the building's history and its association with the community as well. And so it would talk about, the history of it being a library, a school, and then becoming the city hall, and then becoming the community center as well. And so that's kind of why we say it's an honorary information gathering program. It just represents a portion of Colorado's history. And so the Office of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, we assist property owners in listing state and national register nominations for properties that have association with the significance of history in Colorado. And so in this case, I would be helping to write the nomination for that building. And buildings that are on the state register of historic places, they can be eligible for investment tax credits, as well as potentially eligible for grants with the State Historical Fund as well. So these can be for approved rehabilitation projects. So projects that kind of like help the building get back to what it looked like historically, things like that, repairing a roof, anything that would help make sure that that building does not, does not get damaged or anything over time. And then the grants can also be used for acquisition, development, education, serving, and planning projects if they are if they're given the grant, basically. But nomination is kind of that first step to be able to get these incentives and also these potentially being able to apply for these grants. And so we would really like to nominate Swink Community Center for the State Register of Historic Places, which would open up potentially some of these benefits for that property in the town of Swink. And we would be really happy to answer any questions you might have. I know that was kind of a lot of information that I just threw at you all at once. So we also have Damian Pachota, who is also the State and National Register historian for this region of Colorado. And we both would be really happy to answer any questions you might have about what we're proposing as well.
I guess from a legal standpoint, Mr. Maliff, is there a con to this if we are?
I don't know if it applies, so I'll play stupid here, but I believe that once it gets to that point, you can't do a modification without complying with ADA requirements. Is that an accurate statement?
No, unless you do any changes to the building.
Then you have to become ADA compliant.
Yes, but then you can receive state historical fund money to pay for that ADA compliance. So
That's the only downside that I know.
but we do that all the time. People come in and say, hey, we need to comply with this now, or we want to do it because it's state historical fund is meant not for private properties, but for public community access. And since this is literally a community center, it would definitely fit that role. And so even if to get ahead of that, you came in for a grant, we have a grant cycle on April 1st and October 1st, not to throw more dates at you for grants.
So sorry.
We're all not grants, we're writing them down.
But that's
That disadvantaged part.
yeah, that's the grant cycle. And we have State Historic Fund has their own staff that help through this entire process. Rebecca Goodwin is here and can talk to you about what that process looks like from a local perspective. But it's something that we do all the time.
So, if you'd like me, I'm Rebecca Goodwin. I'm the County Historic Preservation Officer. We're a county, what's called a certified local government, and the county has an intergovernment agreement with this town of Swink. We also have one with like Rocky Ford and Manzanol and all those. So what we can do is, like, if you decide to go for a grant, we help with nominations if needed. If you decide to go for a grant, then we're here to help be a resource for the technical advice for applying for the grant. I can tell you right now, we are working with the Manzanol United Methodist Church. They have a series of grants. We've been working with them. It's on the county register and hopefully will be on the national register here shortly. We're going to be working with the Grand Theater in Rocky Ford. We've got several other that we're working with. So we help with those grants. It's things of like writing the grant, getting the local history together, even letters of support, and helping guide you through that. And so that's part of what we do as, with the IGA, with the county, with the city and the county, we can help with that. And so you can apply for those state grants. There's also, if let's say for instance, you decide you at some point need to do some work on that building. Maybe you need to do, upgrade HVAC or electrical or those kinds of things. There are also planning grants. There are grants through State Historical Fund where you can do construction documents and planning grants and those kinds of things, getting prepared to do a bigger project if you ever decided you needed to.
And those grants are non-competitive.
Those are and they're a rolling grant.
And they're rolling grants, which means the October, April deadlines don't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
if we were to accept the nomination and be on the registry, we don't have to change anything to the grant?
no,
No.
If
Not at
deemed
all.
not necessary.
No.
there are no.
And if you were and decided to change something, you don't need to notify us at all.
Okay.
Like you could, as I often say, you could list it today and tomorrow you can knock it down. The only thing that you would potentially lose out on is State Historic Fund money, which you don't have today anyways.
What we would say now, if you're on the county register, I've often used the Presbyterian Church in Rocky is on the county register, but it's the same criteria. Is if they went in and put on a metal roof and covered up the beautiful stone with vinyl siding, I probably would take, we would move to take them off the register because they've changed the historic integrity of the building. So, those are the kind of things, but then it also gives you the opportunity, if it's on the state register, you decide you want to do something, we can help advise you. There's all the people at History Colorado and the architectural historians that can say, you need to do this. Here are your options, and these are the best ways to do it to make sure that you do maintain it. So you get all that information and all the other staff at History Colorado to kind of be there to help guide you.
And part of that is recognizing Swink doesn't have any sites on the state or national register currently. And so I am accessible anytime you have questions or want to understand the process, because a lot of communities, such as Rocky Ford or La Junta, do. And so they kind of understand how the process works, but we don't expect everyone to know, which is another reason why we want to represent all of Colorado, and recognizing the important history of this community is important to us. And so making sure that we do that and are accessible to you all if you have questions. And I will also note that we did do what's called a determination of eligibility to determine if the site is eligible before even getting to this point. And that's part of my job. I determined it is eligible for the National Register. So this would be National Register. That doesn't change anything that I'm saying. You can still tear it down, all of that sort of stuff. Federal tax credits come into play. You all are a town, so you can't really benefit from that, but that's the only other change. The other thing is it will then be put in the Library of Congress as part of the country's history of historic places. And you'll get a nice plaque, too, that you can put on the building.
What if it's been altered over time?
That's part of the determination of eligibility. It actually we do a difference between integrity and condition. Condition sometimes is different. Integrity, there's 7 criteria. I don't need to go into all that, but the integrity is very good. The only thing that's really changed is the front entrance, and that's been pretty minor, to be honest. It's in really good shape.
Rebecca mentioned the roof at the Presbyterian Church. We've redone the roof from the original wood shingles and stuff, and
That's perfectly
changed
fine.
out all the
Yeah,
windows
that's
and all
fine.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's to be expected. We don't expect buildings to be as they were. We expect buildings to grow and to change use, like being a library to a school to a community center. That's the life of a building, and so that's built into the process. And that doesn't prevent you from saying, okay, now we want to turn it into a McDonald's. You can absolutely do that. It doesn't have to stay a community center.
Really, sir?
We wouldn't recommend
Really?
it. We wouldn't
Absolutely.
Yeah, you just
Holy Moses.
We wouldn't recommend it, but
Didn't clear swing 6-1. There was one holdout.
She's a manager at Wendy's.
oh,
Yeah.
I apologize. Wendy's.
I'm on tape.
Looks like someone's eating dinner at Wendy's and it's make up for that.
Yeah. Tried about a mile and a half down the road, sir. Holy Moses.
Trustees, do you guys have any questions, concerns about this, that, or the other? That's something we want to move forward with a nomination, or do we not?
There's an application that has to be presented, correct?
No.
No application, we just say please? and you
You'd
say
have
okay?
to do a resolution or a vote, giving them permission to do the nomination. So then it's in
Do I
your
have to
minutes.
fill out this thing?
Are we legal?
Yeah.
Is legal good with this?
Sure.
I motion we give them History Colorado permission to nominate Swink Community Center for the National Registry. Did I say that, please?
Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a motion by Robin and a second by Rick to accept the nomination for the community building to be put into the National Registry of Historic Places. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
So do I need to get you guys this?
Actually, for the National Register, you do not.
Oh.
It's only, we need to get permission for the National Register, and you will receive information through the entire process. The meeting will be in January. January 17th, yes. It is going to be a big meeting. Normally we do only 12 sites, This meeting, there are 36 sites.
Oh, wow.
So we're
So
gonna
we
be,
should go to
we're
that?
gonna be moving fast, and I'll text you and stuff and say, hey, your time is coming up and that sort of thing, so.
Dave, do you mind if I just, from a standpoint, just so you know, we just went through the process, I wrote the nomination, the Valley View Hillcrest Cemetery in Rocky Ford just went onto the National Register. And I was part of the project team to do that. So the nomination, you're really lucky, because that had to have a grant to do the funding to do that. History Colorado is going to do this for you. They may need some information, or if they, if we can help them, whatever, they'll go through and do that. You'll get the nomination. We'll come back. You can look at it, read it, make sure everything's correct. Do that. It'll go back up, and then the review board meeting is in Denver. The one in September was virtual, but the one in May is when the cemetery went before that. You're welcome, if you want to participate, to go up and just say, yes, we really want to have this on this and why it's so important to the community, but you don't have to. And then if it passes, that's a review board of historians and archaeologists and experts in the state of Colorado, who they look at each one of those nominations. If they have a few questions, then they have to deal with it, but answer those questions. And then from there, it would go on to Washington, D.C. So that's kind of how the process. So you're allowed to, as much as you want to be involved in it at each step. If you want to go to Denver or be in that meeting, you can.
And the
You don't have
January
to.
meeting will be virtual, so you don't actually have to come to Denver in the middle of January.
We can attend that.
Quite a
one.
drive.
Last month, we did the national nomination for the Manzanar United Methodist Church. And a couple of the ladies, Alice McDonald and Jay Alexander from the church, were on there virtually. And I happened to be in LA, and I was on from that meeting as well. So, you can be a part of it, or you don't have to.
And just so you all know, once the review board approves it, there may be some minor changes that they say, can you do this or that? Layla will fix it, then it comes to me. I'm the person that presents it to the review board. I'm the one that makes sure all the compliance and that sort of stuff. She's a drafter, I'm the reviewer and stuff, and the person for the state. And then it goes to my counterpart in Washington, D.C. for the National Park Service. They have 45 days to review it. So essentially you should be notified by probably March that this is on the National Register of Historic Places.
That'd be great.
That's kind of cool.
For History Colorado, with your Southeast Colorado news in Swink, I'm Adrian Hart.